is for everyone. But for this to become a reality in the society we live on today, we need to increase the accessibility and lower the barriers. Hi everyone, my name is Elisabeth, but I am better known online under my gaming tag Arevya. I am 30 years old. That I feel sometimes like it's old because I'm on Twitch, so that is really old. And I like to call myself a boring Batman. Instead of being a billionaire by day and crime fighter by night, I am an accountant by day, and then I'm a Twitch streamer at night. I'm a lifelong gamer. I remember my mom always tells me that when I was a kid, I used to run into the cupboard and I take a bucket and I place the bucket on the chair and I up top of the bucket. So I could sit like this and I could play Lion King. And I could sit there for hours to play, as long as anybody let me. My first ever controller the first ever controller I didn't need to share with my sister, let's be clear here, was a transparent Game Boy Color with Pokemon Yellow. It was purple, so I was part of the cool kids, or as cool kids as us nerds could be in the 90s. And by the way, everybody, I'm disabled. I am born with an invisible disability because when I came to this earth in the 90s, I got stuck during childbirth and the doctors couldn't get me out quick enough. And when they first got me out, my brain had lost oxygen. So when my mom took me home from the maternity ward, she started noticing that I didn't act as I should act. I did this with my hand. I started to protect myself. I didn't want to use my arm. So she rushed me to the doctor and was like, hey, this kid is not normal, help us. And they examined me and the doctor was like, yeah, she has cerebral palsy. It's a brain injury you get if you get lacking of oxygen. And I've gotten that one. This was, as I said, in the 90s. And even though I received good treatment until I could walk in the age of 2, the doctors had a bit of a different knowledge of what we think about when we think about illnesses. Because the doctor said, hey, she looks healthy, she acts healthy, everybody, she is healthy. And then she told my mom and dad, hey, your kid is cured. No, you can't be cured from a brain injury. It doesn't work like that, does it? So today we know that you cannot be cured by a brain injury, but we think that the reasons why the doctors said that in the 90s is because they thought that, well, if she just acts normal, she won't use her illness as a crutch throughout her life. So we just don't tell her that. We know better today. We know that if we are open with kids and if we inform them about things, they will find a belonging and they will find a community. But why am I telling you all of this, my wonderful childhood? Why am I telling you all of this? Well, I grew up without knowing that I had a brain injury. And even though I would say that I had a good upbringing, do not, brain freeze, I'm sorry. Do not take me wrong. I had a good upbringing. I had a good family, I had friends, and I had a good schooling. But I often notice that I am not like everybody else. I don't run fast, and I'm in a lot of pain. And even though I work hard at school and my teacher says I'm smart, every single evening, me and my mom sits there and we work and we work and we work, and it just doesn't go through my brain. I was sick a lot and I had a lot of pain. But I was a child. And what do you do when you're children? Well, you think what I experience is what everybody else experiences. And I thought, well, I'm just dealing with it worse than everybody else. And when I asked my doctor, the doctors just said, well, you'd have to learn to live with it. That is just how it is. But I do remember feeling different. I felt I didn't quite fit in. And I felt like something was wrong. Which is true, something was wrong, but I didn't know that. But cue forward to the gaming, cue forward to the PC, the bucket, the PlayStation, cue forward to my transparent purple Game Boy Color with Pokemon Yellow. And I, for the first time as I can remember, experienced what we can call true empowerment. When everything in a child's life is supposed to be measured and timed and a competition, right? We do that at school all the time. You run fast, you be smart, and you're going to be cool. We say that all the time to kids. But I was never able to reach up to a box. I was never born to achieve and to be in. But gaming was the one place I could exist, just the way I was. Because when I sat down with my Game Boy or my Sony PlayStation, it was just me and Spyro, it was just me and Crash, it was just me and Tomba. And if I did 20 times on a level or 100 times on a level, nobody cared. I could just stay there and exist just the way I was. For the first time, I actually experienced empowerment. I experienced being like everybody else. I experienced to be, well, good enough. I could exist without a pressure to reach something I was never born to achieve. And I felt a sense of accomplishment. I felt like everybody else. And I felt like I fitted in. I'm an adult now. Ooh, I'm an adult. And I've learned that cerebral palsy is not the only thing that is wrong with me. I have like rheumatism, arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, joint problems. My joints get swollen and it hurts. I have stomach problems. I think like a lot of people in here can attest to that. They also have that. I have stomach problems like a lot of us. And I have PTSD. Like I get scared a lot. Let's just say it in a mild and fine way like that. And it hasn't been easy to learn how to live with all of these conditions. Because as one more of these conditions came into my life, the more lonely I felt and the more isolated I felt. However, the one thing that's always brought me joy, guess, since we're here, what that could be. Yes, gaming. Because when dyslexia made me so angry because the words kept changing where they were on the page, and I threw the book at the wall and it didn't help. Well, you know what gaming did? Gaming said, good, I'm going to read the text with you. You can hear it. And when my hands was in so much pain that I couldn't use a controller, well, I tried to use my elbow. And if everything failed, I had my older sister, and she helped me game. And this is why I'm telling you all of this, because I'm pretty sure of all of us in here can agree that gaming is so much more than just gaming. When you look at the newspaper, they say, yeah, gaming is some way of having fun, right? Well, it's also a way of us to find a belonging, to find a community, and to find a place we belong. And that was what I felt. I find joy inside a framework of pain and of illness, and there was a way of me being just the way I was. I am slow on my thing there. There we go. So, I am... Sorry about that. Yeah. So after some years now, my health has improved massively because I found some doctors that helped me, believe me, and helped me to learn to live with my conditions. So in 2017, I decided that I want to try and go live on Twitch. After spending time on YouTube and finding a community for over 10 years, I went live for myself. And for the first time, I understood that, okay, gaming can be fun and we can have a community, but gaming can also be a way for disabled people, like myself, to find a place of accomplishment. But it's also a social meeting place for people to find it difficult to leave their house for a lot of different reasons. It's been 6 years since I started streaming, and today I make content across all platforms, and I have the motto, making internet a better place, one stream at a time. I'm also an advocate for disability rights, especially in the gaming industry, where I focus on accessibility in gaming to make that the standard of every single game, so that more people can benefit from gaming, so that gaming can be for everyone. So I have gone from using gaming as a way of having fun, to a way of finding a community, to a place where I can make a community and make people feel safe. And I try to make my experience growing up and gaming and having fun with it as a bridge between disabled gamers and you developers or people who work in games, so that the games I loved so much growing up and the games I love so much today can be enjoyed by more people. Okay, so now I told you guys my sob story, and it's time to go into the nitty-gritty of what is accessibility. And accessibility in itself is quite easy. You take a product, a place, or something, and you lower the barrier so more people can use it. That is just what it is. And often we think about accessibility as something that is made for disabled people, but a well-designed environment, what we call a universal design, is something that can benefit us everyone. Imagine a ramp, okay, well, it's made for people in a wheelchair, but it's good to have if you have a heavy suitcase. So then what is gaming accessibility? Gaming accessibility is when we lower the barrier of games so more people can play it. Easier than that. We lower the barriers to avoid an unnecessary mismatch from gamers' capability and the barrier you face in a game. We can, in other words, for you guys who are in there, look at accessibility as a tool to make sure that more players has the intended vision for what you intended the game to be when you made it. So accessibility is about lower the barrier so more gamers get the intended experience you envisioned them to have. But I've talked about barriers. And what are barriers? Oh, we have gotten an extra space. Well, sorry about that. But we can see at barriers in two ways. We can look at barriers as unintentional barriers and intentional barriers. A barrier in a game is everything you can imagine. It's what makes the gamer not being able to process. And a game is a billion of barriers. Think like a puzzle game has puzzles. Makes sense. A game like Elden Ring has hard bosses. Makes sense. A game like Crash Bandicoot Time Racing has races. Makes sense. Those are intentional barriers. That is what make your game your game. And this is what we want you to have in your game because it makes them fun. Unintentional barriers is like you see here from 2 dots. This is a mobile game. And intentional barriers is when a barrier makes people not being able to progress the way you intended them to want to progress. If you look at here, we have normal mode, I can call it that, and we have color mode or color blindness mode. What they've done is that they saw that they want puzzles to be the barrier, and they did that with colors, green and purple and blue. But what if people can't see green and purple and blue? How are you going to match the puzzle then? You give them shapes. You have triangle, you have minus, and you have plus. Okay, you have intended barriers, the puzzle, and you use the accessibility to take away the unintended barrier, the color blindness. And today I'm going to, because you guys are all making a game, so I'm going to talk about that, but I'm quickly going to show you something. Because accessibility is not just what you put in options in games, it's also like this, controllers, hardware. So I don't know how many have seen this, but this is the Xbox Adaptive Controller. This is a controller, this is the same as this. But as you can see, it has 2 big buttons. So imagine if you have problems with moving your arms, it's so much easier to hit the button here than it is to hit the button here. What this also is that it is a hub. See all those entrances there. So that means that if you have something extra you want to add to it, say like you need a joystick, or you need like 1 button for your foot and 1 button for your arm and 1 button for your next foot, you can just add it to this and this becomes your controller. In other words, if this is a barrier, this is your accessibility tool. And Sony is also working on one. Sadly, I don't have it here because it's not out yet, but it's called Sony Project Leonardo. and it looks like that. We don't have a release date on it yet, so can't say anything more about it, but FYI, if you make anything for Sony or for PlayStation, you soon can add more accessibility tools for it. But what then is accessibility in your game? Well, we can divide it up in 5 different categories. We have motor, cognitive, vision, hearing, and speech. And let's start with motor. Motor is like moving. It's like a motor, it moves. So it's easy to understand. And I think the most well-known, as the one I have decided to put on top, that is button remapping. Button remapping is the most well-known. I know Overwatch did it really well. Each hero can have his own buttons so that you can do it easier for you. But it can be more than that. It can be input devices that you can use both of those controllers. That is an accessibility tool. Or that you don't need to mash a button or hold in a button. That is an accessibility option. And it's like settings to ensure multiple actions can be done with one button, if that is the option. And you can be really advanced and really fancy and provide macro systems, but that is really fancy. But accessibility don't only need to be options, it can also be part of the design. What you see down here is Just Dancing, and they have seating mode. That is the songs you dance, because people know what Just Dancing is, you dance. And here, you sit and dance. That is brilliant for people with no mobility in their legs, or people who can't put pressure on their legs, or people who don't want to come up off their couch. Help them all. The next we have is cognitive accessibility. That is everything. I think this is the one who people are not sure what is. It's a bit not sure. But it's a category I fell a lot into because of my brain injury. I forget a lot, and I feel like I have a brain fog all the time. So I use something called a journal system. In the second picture here, the new game called Chia, and that game has like an awesome journal system. Everything you can imagine, you can find there. Pick up a flower, good, now it talks about it in your journal. And for me, that is wonderful because I keep forgetting things. And I'm a massive Googler of things, but here I can just get it through the game. But you also have other things like Coral Island, it's still in beta, early access I mean, and they have game time speed. Say you have ADHD or autism or brain fog, or for some reason things aren't as easy for you to put in line of what to do every day. Well, you put down the game speed and now you have time to roam around and do what you want. The newest thing, I haven't seen this actually before in any game. Dead Space had trigger warnings, which for me who has PTSD is really cool. It just says that content warning, the upcoming section contains descriptions of self-inflicted death. You can put this on, this is not automatic, you have to put it on in the settings, and it gets like blurred out. So if you have really problems with it, no worries, you can still play the game. Then we have vision. And I think the most well-known accessibility tool here is this one. This is from The Last of Us. This is a game a lot of people can play even if they're completely blind. Because if you put on this, is high contrast mode, everything in the world turns gray, but you get one color, the enemies get one color, and the items get one color. In that way, you don't get all the muffled background noises. In other ways, the game is also speech, so if you look somewhere, there is a lady in your ear says, hey, there's a zombie over there, or there's something you should go and check over there. But vision accessibility is a lot more of that. It's like HUD sizing, text sizing. Make sure your character doesn't like go inside the background. Maybe you can give him a big old line around him. Or if you push a button, you can hear something. So if you push a button, oh, the treasure is over there. So there's a lot. Then we have, thank you. Then we have hearing accessibility. Anything that can help you if you can't hear the game. And I think everybody in here has used that. This is the accessibility everyone has used one time in their life or not, because the most well-known example is subtitling. But we have subtitling, and then we have subtitling. And that is the difference I'm going to show you. On top, you see almost impossible to read. And it's like many lines, and it's all through your whole screen. So imagine watching this on a telly, and you're trying to read something while you run. Your head is going to go like this. So subtitle can be bad. It's still accessible, but Then you have God of War, though. God of War Ragnarok did good. They did really good. Because in God of War Ragnarok, you can give every character a different color, so you just like automatically, pink, that's Kratos. Of course pink is Kratos. And then you give him the text afterwards, so it's yellow because it's easy for you to see. Or the background, you decide that the background I need it black or white, depending on what your disability are, or in general what your comfort are. They also had something really cool that I have not seen before, but I struggled to find a good picture of it. And that is like, I don't know if you can see this really bad accessibility from the accessibility advocates. It's a little dot, it's a marker beside the subtitles that goes around the screen. So if somebody talks from this angle, well, the arrow points this way. And if somebody is behind you, it points upwards. That is really good if the character that is talking to you goes outside your field of view. It also helps people that, well, I actually heard for somebody saying that they had auditory hallucinations. And I really enjoyed this because for once they were like, this is from the game, not from my own head. So you need to laugh sometimes. I love that comment. It's the best TikTok comment I've gotten ever. And the last one I have is, it's a small category, it's speech. Communication, think about it, how we communicate. Many of us communicate through speech. Some people can't do that for different reasons. So then you can have options where they can push a button to be able to speak. And this is from Rocket League, and I love it, because if you see, somebody has like put in swear words under apologies, so that you can communicate in levels that everybody else do, even though you can talk to them through voice commands. Okay, so what I think now is that a lot of people at this point, they think that, oh my God, accessibility is a lot. And it is, because every barrier, you have an accessibility need. But then it's the important thing I told to you before. You have to think, what is your intended reason in the game? So what your game will need in accessibility, your game will not need. Your game will need it twice as much, and your game, you don't even have to think about it. And that is how it will be every time, which can be hard, but don't worry. We're going to make it a bit easier today. Okay, we talked about what is accessibility. Let's now talk why you should add it. Well, you heard my story when I grew up, sub-story I like to tell people. But I am not the only one who are disabled in this world, believe it or not. 20% of every gamer are disabled. 1/5. That is a lot of people. And I think Microsoft says it best on their webpage about accessibility. They easily said it. Number of users who can play your game times awesomeness of your game, yeah, it equals game sales. And if we turn this around on its head, if your game is inaccessible, you have maybe people who will refund it. And if you don't want to hear it from my mouth, but other horses' mouth, it's just some of the comments I normally get on my TikToks that I made about accessibility. And let me see where I am. Yes. These are comments I get all the time. I just pulled out some of them. But you see they have, I don't know if you can see it, but they have a lot of likes, 420,000 of likes. I get hundreds of thousands of views of people saying, wow, I didn't know more than I felt this. Been playing Skyrim recently, and the dark canvas with no good lighting, caves I mean, with no good lighting, is going to be the death of me, even worse than the ones with glowing blinds. My life changed when I turned off the bubbling while walking in Minecraft. Made me realize I can get so motion sick. I'll have a Virgo system 4 weeks afterwards I'm playing the game. My gosh, the amount of video games that do not have acquainted motion sickness settings, sad face. This is awesome. Honestly, seeing modern accessibility devices makes me so happy, and so on. So you get the gist. There is a lot of people who need accessibility. But it's not just disabled people like I who need accessibility. Accessibility is for a lot of people. And we all can meet barriers in our life, which is the first one you see here. Because barriers are for somebody who wants to play with this. Somebody wants to play with this that is designed for 2 hands. Well, what if you're born without a limb difference, born without an arm, say? Well, that can be hard playing with this. We all agree with that. Well, if a game then have one-handed mode, aka you can put it on the side and play with your hand, hey, we made it accessible for the person with only 1 arm. But hey, you over there, you fall over one day and you break your thumb. 8 weeks from now, you have to have it in a cast. Hey, now you also can use it. Or you're a new parent, or you have a dog you want to pet, or you want to drink a beer while playing the game, and you only have 1 arm because that is really important in eating or drinking a beer while you play a game. Hey, you can now use that one-handed way. So what helps somebody with a disability help somebody in a situation with a temporary disability, and just help somebody who is situational, being disabled, by the things they do around them. This is what we call the curb cut effect. You see it here. I mentioned it a bit earlier with the ramp, but I can also mention it with a cut in the curb. You know, a pavement, I don't know, what do we call it, pavement, everyone? Pavement, you don't get hit by cars. It can have, sidewalk, thank you. Sidewalk, it can have like a cut in it. It's made for people in a wheelchair to be able to wheel down without having to like jump over the little thing that can make it hurt if you are in a wheelchair. So wheelchair use it, but I also use it when I'm bicycle because I'm a wuss and I don't want to jump down that little thing. And I know mothers in strollers use it because it's easier. Or if you're delivering groceries, if you have a suitcase, if you're a bicyclist, if you're a skateboarder. If we make something accessible for people who need it the most, it will help everyone else. And this is something that is also in games. Assassin's Creed Odyssey gave us subtitles on by default. When you started the game, the subtitles went on. And the numbers shows us that 97% of all players left them on. And I can understand why. My ears are completely fine, I can hear everything, but I love to eat chips. And when you eat chips, and while you play a game, there's one thing you can't, and that's hearing, because the only thing you hear is crunch, crunch, crunch. Okay, I use subtitles. So what is made for somebody who's deaf or hard of hearing helps me who love to eat. So you see the cut curb effect in real life and in gaming. And we are coming towards the end now. So what accessibility can you then add to your game? And like quickly just going to show how game developers do this, which I think they've done it really, really well. I don't know, have any of you played any of these games? Some of you have played it. Okay, so start with Chia. This is a new game, open world. You run around on like islands, it's pretty, it's tropical, ooh. And it's inspired by a place called New Caledonia. That is the studio's funder is from New Caledonia, and they wanted to make a love ladder to their homeland. And that is what it is. This game is a love ladder through their traditions, music, landscape, and everything else, but also languages. In Chia, you can only play in one of 2 languages, Drehu or French. And I don't know about you all in here, I don't speak either Drehu or French. So what did I do? That is the intentional barrier they have decided when they made the game. My meat and bone, my vision for this game is New Caledonia. We're going to do that stand, we're going to use those languages. So what do? They add a plethora of subtitles options in many languages, in many sizes. So like when you read it, you can have different backgrounds on it, you can have different sizing, all that jazz. And as I told earlier, they have a journal system, so you can go back and read what happened. I don't need to hear the game anymore, I can read the game. Grounded, if anybody have ever seen Bug's Life or Honey, I Shrunk My Kids from the 90s, they know what Grounded is. You are a human, most of us are, but you are a human and you get shrunk and you get put in your back garden. Now you need to get home. What is in your back garden? A back garden is full of fun things and flowers and cute things, but it's also full of spiders. And I don't know about you, but I hate spiders. But I don't have a phobia. So what did Grounded do? Well, they said like, okay, we want to make a game where you are in your back garden. That is my inspiration for the game. That is my barriers, but they are intentional. I want those. Let's have those. How do we overcome them? They gave us our spider mode. We call it that because I can't remember the long name. They gave us spider mode, which made every single spider in the game into a marshmallow. I don't know about you guys, but if I get chased by something that is so high and have like teeth and 8 legs and run after me, I prefer that thing is a marshmallow. It's still scary, it's a massive marshmallow up there and you run for your life, but it doesn't trigger phobias. But I know a lot of people just don't like spiders. No. So we have gone from something that is accessible for people having a legit phobia to something that helps me as well, because I just don't like spiders. See, again, you have barriers, you find out what is intentional, you stand your ground of what you want your game to be, but then think, okay, but how can we help those who don't want that? Okay. These two games show us that it's possible to be true to who you are and what do you like and still be accessible. And in the accessibility sphere, we say something funny. We say accessibility is like an apple pie. If you make an apple pie, if you bake, you add sugar and flour and everything, apples, and then you bake it, right? And you all agree, if I'm going to make an apple pie, it's really hard if I bake the pie first and then add the apples afterwards. The same as with accessibility. If you make your game first, and then you start thinking about accessibility, you're going to struggle, because it's hard to put apples into a baked pie, and it is also hard to put accessibility into a done game. What Grounded and Chia told us or learned us, is that if you think about it from the start, you can still have your pie, and you can bake it with apples too. You can do what you want and still make it accessible. And you don't need to like invent the wheel again. Wheel. There are resources out there for us. Like we don't need to like make fire each time. And we're at the end now, so I'm just going to give you guys some resources. Don't worry, I will make a Google Docs, and you can get all of these links. So don't need to write them down or fix it. There are 2 things I want to show you guys. This is the game accessibility guidelines. It is a webpage where you can go in and you can figure out what accessibility you need. Vision, cognitive, motor, and everything. It's a long list of everything you can imagine and a bit more. But it's a living document, it gets updated all the time, and it has good examples so that you can actually go and look at what other people have done and learn from them. It's easy. I highly recommend people just check it out. Also because we have basic, intermediate, and advanced. So put yourself where you feel comfortable. The second one I'm going to say is YouTube. That is never good when someone says, do your research on YouTube. But there is actually a lot of good talks people have had. And a lot of people make content about accessibility, about their disability. So that you can maybe put yourself in their shoes and think about what is making it hard for somebody who's blind or somebody who's deaf. And if your studio doesn't have money, you also have accessibility on a shoestring. So you can learn to make it, put it in a game, and almost won't cost anything. And if you don't want to know the basic, video game accessibility. This is a bit old, but it's a really, really well-made source. Okay, so I've been speaking now for 35 minutes. And I think some people's head are buzzing. We're not like, okay, there's a lot of information. But accessibility is a vast field. It's what I'm trying to show you guys. If you have imagination, you can think about the barrier, and you need an accessibility tool for that. Some people after my speech are sitting there and thinking, I'm drowning. I'm afraid, and I think if I do anything, I will do it wrong. But please don't. Adding one thing is one thing more than nothing. It's not an all and nothing show. It's we have one problem, we try to fix it this time. So the last thing I'm going to say, if there is one thing I want you to take from this conversation into this weekend, it is this. It's not an all or nothing game. If you want to try and work with accessibility this weekend, pick one thing, one barrier. It can be anything you imagine and only focus on that one thing. Think about accessibility and that one thing and how that will support the envision of your game. Think about how that will make your game make your game better, how it will overcome that one barrier and how it then can be used to sell to more people. Don't feel like you're drowning in should do, could do. Use it as a mean to make your game more accessible and take it as a way of learning a new thing. Think about your one thing from the start, bake it into your game accessibility cake you're making this weekend, and you have come a long, long way compared to other people. So that is what I had to say today. Thank you so much for having me. And while I have my not so shameless promo here, if anybody have any questions, now is the time. Yes?
So what challenges and opportunities do you think new devices like VR and XR will have in regards to accessibility?
VR glasses?
Yes.
Yeah, so again, that is again the thing, like VR are a way. If you are completely blind, which is few people, most people are blind, have some kind of vision, you can't do VR. That is just how far it comes. But a lot of people, and actually, can I go back? Yeah, here, the second one here, he's called Steve Saylor. He is blind. And he was not, just now, he made a YouTube about his experience with a new Sony VR system. It's possible, but it didn't need to be accessible. How does it need to be accessible? Text needs to be larger, maybe colorblind mode so that you can have your character stick out from the background. Again, it depends a bit, right? But yes, there will always be people who cannot play it, whatever you do. One thing I think most people have problems with is motion sickness. I'm the one person who has motion sickness. I tried Skyrim in the VR once, and that is horrible if anybody has tried it. But so if you have extreme motion sickness, you will most likely not be able to overcome it. But the ways we can overcome it is not giving head bobbing, motion blur, camera shake, ways you can overcome it. I hope that answered your question somewhat. Yeah. Does anybody else have any questions? Yes.
What are your thoughts about narration and like narrating?
Narrating,
yeah.
It's really cool. I think it's really cool. When I reviewed Shia on YouTube, put it up on YouTube, and one thing I told the maker of the game, because we had the text, right? Who showed us the text? Gone by talking in French, no problem. I know that now. Because I have the subtitles. But it went automatic. I have dyslexia, and if anybody in here have dyslexia, you might know that if text go fast, that is a no-go. You just give up, because it's too fast for you to comprehend it. So if you have a narrator, I would recommend, if it's possible, to have a narrator you can click through, or you can just have it go automatically, but give the option to click through it, or, again, put in a journal system so that all the text, this transcription of your game just comes in there. It's really easy, and it gives nerds like me a way to go in and actually read what happens again. That makes sense. So it helps some people, it can be a barrier for some people, but we can work around it. Yes?
In regards to factors, like the accessibility factors, where were the things like autism or Asperger's syndrome fit in? Like,
so I don't have autism, so I don't know. But what I've heard from others, because that is important to understand, I have just some disabilities, and my worldview has like, you know, racehorses have like these things. Yeah, I'm a disabled person with these things on. I see the world through my understanding of the world through my disabilities. But what I've learned from other people who have autism is that they can easily get overstimulated. So I give it a possibility to a pause button. Stop, I want out. Give it a possibility to turn down light or up light, brightness. Give the possibility to sound. I don't have autism, but I hate walking sounds. When it hears like everybody has like high heels, I hate that. I think it's so uncomfortable. I played Final Fantasy 13, and Lightning sounds like she's walking on these high heels wherever she goes, and it's so annoying because when you first think about it once, you can never unhear it. Okay, give us sliders for sound. Walking, talking, background noise. Yeah, give us that. Again, this game accessibility guideline, a lot of this you will find in here, and they will give you great examples. Yeah. Anybody else have any questions? Yeah.
Would you say these guidelines are enough, or is it also relevant and necessary to involve disabled people in like play testing?
Oh, 100%, yes. Please, if it's possible. We have a saying in the, okay, sorry, I should have said again the question, because I don't know if anybody can hear it. He said that is it enough to do this, the guidelines, or should you involve disabled people or people with illnesses when you try out a game? 100% yes. In the disabled community, we have a saying, nothing about us without us. Because, as I said, like again, if you have these like blinders on like horses have, it is hard to understand how other people see the world around you. And that is the same for a game. Like you can try and make it as accessible for somebody who is deaf, but it's only the person who are deaf that will actually 100% know how it feels. And disabled people, we aren't a monolith. What I feel, the next person will not feel. If you have one person with autism, you will have another person meaning something else. It's just how it is. Which is why I also hope that you guys can understand that you are allowed to take a stand, like Chia did, like Rounded did. We want spiders, we want Drehu and French. You are allowed to do that, but we work around it. But sometimes you can't no game can be 100% accessible. So Pokemon, I have a friend who can only move one finger, super accessible. The most accessible game ever, because Pokemon you can play with one finger, one button press. Have a person who, somebody else cannot play Pokemon because it just doesn't work for them. So the same, yeah. So it is a bit hard, I know, but I think Twitter, a lot of us disabled people love Twitter for some reason. Shouldn't think so, but ask people, hey, do we have any disabled people or any people that want to play test accessibility? A lot of people want to do that, especially if they can get something back, like access to the game or something back. And it doesn't always need to be monetarily giving something back. It sometimes can be just, hey, you can play the game, or you get a code of the game when it's done. Any other questions? No, then I think if anybody has any questions later today, I'm here a bit tomorrow as well. Just stop me in the hallway and I will answer everything I can try, or find somebody who knows better than me, because there's a lot of those people. Thank you so much for having me.